I'm not sure if anyone knows about it, but there is a tiny town called Plentywood in the northeastern tip of Montana. It's only 15 miles from the Canadian border, and it's only a couple hours away from North Dakota. It is really small. This was during the huge oil boom, so a lot of people were coming into North Dakota and Plentywood, which caused some problems, but North Dakota was getting the brunt of it. I went to work there because I couldn't find work. I lived with 2 other people who treated me like their kid, so I called them Mom and Dad. I worked at Dairy Queen at first, but didn't stay very long because my boss was a racist ass clown. I told him he was the biggest asshole I had ever met in my life, threw my apron in his face, and walked out. It was my birthday, too. Shortly after that, I started working at a bar called the Gold Dollar. I actually really liked it. However, I was the only young female working there, so it was sometimes frustrating because I only get male customers most of the time. On my 3rd day working, a guy grabs my breasts, and in reflex I falcon punched his genitals. I swear it was just reflex. Most of the guys were pretty cool though, and I made some good friends. Some of the guys were actually from out of this country. That's when I met 2 Russians. One was a really funny guy. I can't recall his name, but no one could say it very well anyways, so everyone just called him JJ. I always used to joke with him, and we would make fun of how thick his accent was. The other one, something was off about him. He didn't really do anything per se, but I was always unnerved by him. It was his eyes. They were very dark. You couldn't really tell what he was thinking or feeling. My Nana always tells me to listen to my gut. My gut was telling me he was trouble. For a while, nothing happened. I noticed he was watching me a lot while I worked, but so did a lot of other guys. I just learned to ignore it after a while. One night, I left work early because my boss was worried I was burning myself out. I had worked from 8 in the morning till 2 in the morning the other day. I was pretty tired. Some of my friends smoke, and the bar had a smoking area in the back. I decided to drink a little and hang out with my friends before I walked home. Instead of walking back through the bar to go out front, I decided to walk around. It was chilly, but a fairly nice night, so I figured, why not? As I'm walking, I hear someone calling my name. I turn and see that it's the creepy Russian guy. Lovely, I thought. He starts talking to me about some random shit. I think he was trying to make small talk to stall me, but I was having trouble pretending I cared. All I'm noticing are his dark eyes roaming all over my body. I try to back up as he talks. I'm trying to hint that I have to leave. He keeps walking towards me, as I keep backing up. The next thing I know, he has me caged in his arms, up against the outside wall of the bar. I'm not easily spooked, but when you're 5'7", and you have a 6'5" Russian looming over you, it's a bit frightening. I'm about to open my mouth to tell him he needs to back the fuck up, when he says this in a thick Russian accent. You would look so beautiful covered in blood. What the fuck? I'm in shock. I'm not sure if I should punch him, or call for help first. He then starts leaning down, like he's going in for the kiss, then says, You will be more beautiful screaming and thrashing beneath me. I was like, fuck this. So I headbutted him in the mouth and ran into the bar. After that, I thought it was the end. He disappeared, and JJ said he didn't really know the creep well enough to tell me anywhere he went off to. I sorta just forgot about it after a while. Life goes on, you know? I thought that was the end. Not so much. A couple of months after this, it's winter now, and I had to leave the bar because there was a crazy bitch who worked on the restaurant side of the business. She thought I was trying to steal her boyfriend who was old enough to be my grandpa. She went to prison once for stabbing her ex-husband. I'm not gonna mess with crazy like that. No job is worth it. One night, I was eating dinner at my aunt's with my dad and my little brother. My mom was in DC on business. My aunt was running low on some things, so she needed to run to the store, and I needed to let the dogs out to go to the bathroom. So we decided that she would drop me off at the house so I could let them out. She drops me off, leaves for the store, and I let the dogs out. I'm sitting on the couch reading, when I suddenly hear my beagle Snoopy start barking at something. I'm confused, because he sounds really pissed off. I open the door, and see my border collie Lily is hanging out by the door. She runs in, and ducks behind me, but Snoopy is still barking at something. I start to yell at him, and I suddenly freeze. There is someone standing outside my fence, just outside the reach of my porch light. They were just standing there, staring at me. Finally, I unfreeze, and I squint trying to tell who it is. I think it's my brother for a second, but they were way too tall. I call out, "Hello?" They slowly tilt their head to the side, but say nothing. I'm kind of annoyed at this point, and try again. "Hello?" I wave my hands at them. They raise their hand, and slowly just wave their fingers. My blood runs cold. I yell at Snoopy to get back in the fucking house, slam the door shut, briskly walk into the kitchen, and I go over to the knife block. My dad really cares for his knives, and keeps them very, very sharp. I won't have a problem killing someone with his knives. I grab a small one and put it in my back pocket, and then I grab a larger one. I figured if he broke in and disarmed me, I could surprise him with the smaller knife. I go to lock the glass door in the kitchen, and then I try to call my dad. No answer. Shit. I then remember my aunt could be back any minute now, and I don't want her out there with whoever that is. I immediately start having visions of her being grabbed. I try to call her, but she left her phone at home. Shit! I heard the dogs into the bathroom. It's connected to my parents' room, so I could run in there and just grab my dad's gun if I needed to. I also figured I could push the dogs out of the bathroom window if the guy broke in. I call 911, and as I'm talking to the dispatcher, I hear them stepping on our old porch. I tell the operator I'm going to try to see if I can spot them, so I can give a description. I slowly open the bathroom door, and on my hands and knees, I slide out to peek around the fridge that is right next to the bathroom door. I'm staring out into the darkness, past the glass door, but I'm confused, because I know I heard someone. Suddenly, Lily makes a startled sound. I turn to look at her, saying, "What's wrong, Lily?" I see her staring up. I look up at the kitchen sink that's right across the room from the bathroom door. That Russian guy. He's staring down at me through my kitchen window. I duck back into the bathroom, tell the dispatcher that if the officer isn't there soon, I will need to go grab my dad's gun. A couple of tense minutes later, the police show up, and the guy was long gone. They found footprints in the snow around the house, but that's it. My dad was so pissed. He said that if he would have been there, he would have shot him. I laughed it off because I didn't want everyone to worry, but that scared the living shit out of me. I was fully prepared to kill, or be killed. I always wonder if I should have done something different. I'm 55 and live in Auckland, New Zealand. This happened 10 years ago. My marriage had broken up 6 months before, and I moved to Hamilton, New Zealand to hopefully get away from all the bad stuff from my past. I had 2 children, aged 10 and 12, but they ended up in my ex's custody. I was a pushover and had no support from my family, and gave up on the idea of getting custody of my boys. To be honest, I felt too useless to look after them. I later realized I suffered from a breakdown after my marriage broke up, and I had no support. No one knew me in Hamilton. One day, after a good day at work, I started to walk over the bridge that took me to the parking lot where my car was parked, as I did every day. The only difference this day is I had a smile on my face for a change. A car on the other side of the bridge drove past, and I heard a male's voice yell, "Hey babe." I look around to see who he was yelling at, because I was 45, and guys stopped yelling at me at least 15 years ago. I saw no one. I shrugged and carried on walking over the bridge. I got to the other side, and the same car drove past again, on my side of the bridge this time, and he yelled out again. This time I looked at who was being so cheeky. This guy looked to be 30, nice looking, built like a rugby player. But his eyes, they were really scary. As soon as our eyes met, I knew there was something not right there. He kept driving, and I got into my car and drove down the road to the petrol station to fill up, then went to the grocery store. I just came out of the store, and there he was watching me. He had followed me. I was freaked out. I assumed he was trying to find out where I lived. He drove around the car park watching as I loaded the car and took the trolley back. I jumped into my car and started it, and waited until he was at the other end of the car park, and then got out of there quick. I then checked, and yup, he was following me. I tried to lose him by ducking around a car and a trailer backing out. It worked, and gave me a minute or 2 to lose him. I then drove down a dead-end street near my house and hid until I thought I lost him. I unloaded the groceries, and kept looking out the window to see if he saw me and was waiting outside or something. About 15 minutes later, I saw him driving past looking on both sides of the road looking for my car. He missed it, and kept driving and disappeared. The next morning, I thought, I should have driven to the police station and reported it. What an idiot I had been to lead him to my neighborhood. I got myself to work, looking out for him again, but never saw him. I told my team leader about it, and she came with me to the police station and I reported what happened. To be honest, I thought they would laugh at me. I'm not the normal type to be stalked, but they took all the details and took it seriously. They said if it happens again, just to let them know as soon as possible. I was sure it was just a one-off experience, so I wasn't too worried. About a week later, I decided to go to a different grocery store from normal to take advantage of the specials. Nothing unusual, until I start taking back the trolley. There he was. He put his head right out his window and said, "Different one today?" Even the way he drove by was creepy somehow. And his demented eyes. Scary. I thought, right, I'll get you. And as he drove past, I got his license plate number. I then drove straight to the police station and reported it. I got a police woman this time. I gave her the license plate number, and she keyed in the info into the computer. She said, "This is between you and me, okay?" She turned the screen around and asked, "That him?" I jumped. There was my stalker staring back at me. I confirmed it was the same man. She excused herself and left the interview room. I then heard her talking to another male officer. Yeah, seems his type he usually goes for. Going for the prettier ones again. Must be getting his confidence back. I thought, geez, what were the others like then? And then it hit me. There were others. The policewoman came back and said that I needed to be careful for any bushes that I needed to walk past to get to my front door, and to have good security lights. She also advised me to start having a whistle on me at all times. She said she would be around the next night to check around my house to see what I could do to make it safer. I walked out of the police station totally freaked out. Who is this guy? Just what might he do to me? I got home, and I was so jumpy. I unloaded my car quickly and checked every corner, locked my doors, and I slept with a bottle of household cleaner next to my bed, just in case he got in. I figured I could spray it in his eyes to give me a small chance to get away if I had to. It was something. It helped me feel a bit more secure at least. I couldn't go to my neighbors for help. The wife hated me. Don't know why. She never spoke to me. She would walk around my house looking in my windows and watching me. She also started leaving broken glass on my driveway, hoping I would drive over it and rip up my tires. She told everyone I was a prostitute and tried to get me thrown out of my flat. The policewoman came by the next day stating that they had interviewed the guy. She told me his name and said that he was married to an older woman that looked a lot like me. Brunette, blue eyes, olive skin, and overweight. He said that women liked to be yelled at like that. They did it to him all the time. She mentioned that she had asked him, "You don't think they might find it a little scary?" I said that it was his eyes that scared me the most. They were just cold and dark. She agreed that there was definitely something not right there. The policewoman said my house was pretty secure, and just to ensure my doors are always locked. They had recorded my mobile number as priority on our emergency number, 111 here, should I need to call. I was thinking, what the heck is going on? This doesn't happen to people like me. I was totally freaked out. What is this sicko actually capable of? I did everything they told me to, and carried on. I informed people at work, but they thought I was just seeking attention, so I never got any support. Why would anyone stalk me? I was acting slightly spaced out because of my divorce and breakdown, so I couldn't really blame them. I learned not to talk about it. I was facing this totally alone. One night, I got to my car and an arrow had been spray painted on it. It was pointed to a sign that had been spray painted in the middle of the parking lot. It said, "I'm going to rape you, babe." I jumped in my car and drove home. He had spray painted further signs on the fences on my route home. All said the same thing. "I'm going to rape you, babe." It ended up scaring all the women in the neighborhood. No one knew who it was meant for. I mentioned it to the parking warden the next day, and he was a bit concerned for me. Because of my breakdown, I found that I didn't always trust what was going on around me. I truly was a mess. I felt like I was losing my mind, to be honest. Mr. "I'm not going to rape you, babe," then began driving past my house yelling at me, so I felt too afraid to even weed my garden. One day, a pink pickup truck drove past. A short, angry-looking guy was driving. He was staring at me, eyes dark and hard. I was getting sick of this, so I eyeballed him back. What was I thinking? Because I didn't show fear, he got angry. He yelled at me, "Do you want me to come fuck you? You'll never want anyone again after I've finished with you." What the hell was going on? How many mental cases are in Hamilton? I'm truly starting to think that I'm one of them. I took down his license plate and reported it to the police. They said it wasn't one of the cars that my stalker used, and it was not in their records. I was thinking, not another one. Women on their own attract weirdos, the policewoman said. The second stalker seemed to lose interest. Thank goodness. But Mr. "I'm going to rape you, babe" still carried on. He was even coming into the foyer at work. Luckily, there was swipe card access, so he never got near me. I just kept reporting his antics. He stalked me for 2 months, until the police finally arrested him. Apparently, he had done this to another woman as well. They asked me if I would testify in court if I had to. I said, "Sure, if it'll help others." The policewoman said it would. She said she could at least get him 2 years imprisonment for what he was doing. It's not the first time. His court date came and went, and they told me he was out on bail so that he could spend Christmas with his family. He was to be sentenced at the end of January. Great! I usually have my sons over for the holidays for 3 weeks. I told my ex of the situation, and he said that he would not allow the boys to come. He was scared my stalker might hurt them. I had nowhere to go. I was financially strapped due to the divorce, and I had lost touch with my friends. My ex had remarried, and really didn't care a rat's ass what happened to me. Why would he? So I spent Christmas and New Year's alone. I was scared, because I knew he was out on bail, but I thought he would stay away, and the police were monitoring him. He did follow me to the grocery store once. I had never seen him standing up before. This guy was well over 6 feet tall, and built. If he were to get a hold of me, I'd be toast. I'm 5'1". I pulled out my phone, and he took off. Stupidly, I didn't report it. The guy had a good lawyer. He was rich and could afford it. He got 6 months counseling and had to pay me $600. He paid it at $20 a week, and they paid me what he had paid monthly. Maybe if I had reported what he did while he was on bail, he would have gotten a prison sentence. I wasn't thinking straight at the time, and I had no one I could ask for advice. I still regret not saying anything. I saw him about 3 months later on the same bridge. He held out his left hand out the car window. He was on the passenger seat, to show me that I had wrecked his marriage because I reported him. I thought to myself, why the hell does he think I would care? The last time I saw him was when some guy smashed into the back of my car at an intersection, and he had driven up and was just staring at me while I was getting the insurance details from the bozo that hit me. His eyes were less scary, so maybe the counseling helped. Still really weird though. I just stared back, just to show him that I'm not scared of him. I know, I'm my own worst enemy. His mother came into work a couple of months later. I knew it was his mother, same surname. It was an unusual one. Looked like him too. She didn't treat her daughter very nicely. I kinda started to understand why he had issues with women after that. I've learned to be more aware of my surroundings now, and have moved cities. My boys decided to come and live with me, due to trouble with the stepmother, and lack of support from their father. So, life does get better with time. That is, until the next weirdo enters my life. This story takes place around Christmas. I was 12 at the time and my mom was 37. I went to the mall with my dad and my mom to look around to see some stores, relax, and grab some food. Before we went to buy food, my dad said that he wanted to use the restroom. My mom and I waited for him right outside. My mom and I were talking about what we wanted for Christmas, when a really weird guy about 50 came out of the restroom. He had black hair covering his face, and he looked drunk. He smelled really horrible too, like something was decomposing. He approached us and started to talk to us. "Hey," he said, pointing at my mom. "Is that the mother or daughter?" "It's my mom," I said to him. "Wow, you look really young. You're so gorgeous," he replied. My mom didn't really understand English, so she was just laughing it off. Then the creep turned to me and said, "And aren't you the cutest and prettiest girl? What's your name, kid?" I knew I shouldn't tell him, but I did. I told him my real name. I was so confused and didn't understand what was going on. He then says, "What a pretty name. Do you want to come with me? I have some candy in my car." I didn't know what to say. I was frozen, and my mom didn't even understand what he had just said, so she couldn't help me. He was staring at me with his crazed red eyes and smiling. Not a cute smile. No. One of those smiles that gives you the chills. I was just about to agree when I saw my dad coming out of the restroom. I was so relieved he was there. He understood English, so he could talk to him. But when the creep saw my dad, he stopped smiling and just left. I saw him later trying to do the same thing to another kid, but he failed once again. And the last time I saw him, he was in a white van, staring at me when I was in the car leaving the parking lot, with the same creepy smile. This story takes place about 5 years ago, when I was in my second year of high school. My friends and I would typically hang out at our local library when we all finished class. I first noticed this guy a few months after I started hanging out there. He was a tall man, about 6 foot, looked to be in his late 30s, and appeared to be Middle Eastern. He would always stare at me whenever I came into the library, as if he could sense me coming or something. But I just figured, hey, this guy just takes extra notice of his surroundings. And I suppose I did look a bit noticeable with my bright red hair and pale features, so I just ignored him. Over the days, his look steadily became more intense, and he even began to follow me into the back section of the library. He would stare at me through the gaps between the shelves and between the books. Even though I was only 14 or so, I wasn't easily intimidated, and was known as a very hyper kid, and was always laughing. But this was starting to really bug me, and creep me out a little. Over the weeks, he continued to do this, and was always walking by me, closer than a normal passerby. I was freaked out, but I just figured this creep would get bored and cut it out when I didn't acknowledge him. As it continued, my friends and I eventually began calling him the Creeper. Whenever he would stare at me, it always seemed as if he was thinking things that were inappropriate for a man in his 30s to be thinking about a girl in her early teens. After his usual session of staring at me, and walking ridiculously close, I decided I'd avoid him and go sit at the library computers. Almost immediately, he sat down next to me and said, "Hi." I was surprised, and just replied a really awkward, hello. I could feel his eyes on me as I used the computer, and eventually I just wanted to leave, so I logged off, told my friends I was going to go home, then left. The same things continued to happen for the next couple of days, and I became more and more creeped out, and tried harder to avoid him. I wasn't going to let this creep intimidate me out of my favorite hangout spot with my friends, so my friend's mother started coming to the library with us, as she was a stay-at-home mom, and was an extremely protective woman. One day, as I was using the library computer, I felt something rubbing my leg. Thinking it was one of my girlfriends, who was always very playfully flirtatious, I laughed and told her to stop. But the rubbing didn't stop. So I looked up, and it wasn't my friend. It was the creeper who'd been stalking me, invading my personal space, and stared at me with the same creepy, expressionless face he has for the past week or so. I freaked out, and immediately got up and left the library to tell my friends, who were actually outside this whole time. My friends were really annoyed, and they'd also witnessed this creep and his strange behavior the past week. They decided they'd all follow me inside so they could tell my friend's mother, who at this point had actually witnessed him and his creepy behavior. But just as we were walking towards the library, there was the creeper, walking towards me and staring at me once again. One of my friends, who was very protective, but also a loudmouth, shouted, "Pedophile!" at him as he went inside. We then told my best friend's mother about what had happened. She marched up to him and started yelling at him in front of the library attendant who was sitting at her desk. Apparently, he was filing a complaint about my friends harassing him. That's right. He was the one who was claiming to be harassed. My best friend's mom wasn't having any of it. She told the library attendant everything that he had been doing to me the past week, and the library attendant told him he had to leave. He flat out refused and walked over to the computers again and sat down. My friend's mom and the library attendant called the police, and 2 officers arrived shortly afterwards. My best friend's mom told the officers what had been going on, and the library attendant then revealed that he had done this to a few other girls in the past. The officer then took me into a separate room for my statement while his partner went to talk to the creeper. A few questions in, we heard a commotion outside, and the officer told me to stay inside while he went to check it out. His partner had the creeper on the ground and was charging him with resisting arrest and an unlawful possession of a taser. Upon searching his car, they found rope, duct tape, and some sharp unidentifiable tools. He was arrested for stalking a minor, resisting arrest, and unlawful possession of a weapon. It chills me to think what would have happened if he had caught me alone in the parking lot, which was pretty small and relatively empty, as it was late in the evening when this all happened. I wish I could say it ends here, but no. My family and I moved from that town to another state shortly after because he posted photos of me all over town, claiming I was a liar and a schemer, and how my mom, who works for the US government, was a spy, and other crazy shit like that. This craziness continued for a few more years, until I was in my first year of college. I had moved from the US to a university in England. I found papers claiming that I was being served by this creeper, whom I hadn't seen in years, for lying about things he had done, and getting him arrested. He had hired a private investigator to find me, all the way in England, and taped papers to my door ordering me to come to the United States and go to court with him. Apparently, he was attempting to sue me and my family and couldn't afford a lawyer, so he was representing himself. The really good lawyer my family hired informed us that there wasn't enough for him to force me to come to court, as he didn't give them to me in person. Thank goodness. A year later, I was still in England, and I received word from my parents and their lawyer that he was hiring another investigator to look for me, and that I should lay low for a while. Finally, this last December the courts decided his case against me, which had been ongoing for 4 years, was expired. Basically, it had only gone on that long because he was representing himself, and was spending his own money to press charges, and for those private investigators. I'm 20 years old now, and still get uncomfortable in the library in my old town. I don't want to run into that stupid creep again. I don't want to find out what he's capable of, if he was this obsessive over trying to locate me all these years. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you check out the description for information on how to submit your stories. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.